Okay, welcome to ICESCR Talks. Once again, we continue with this International Human Rights Treaty, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, ICESCR, which was adopted on the 16th of December 1966 and came into force on the 3rd of January 1976, 10 years after. Reasons why you have these gaps is that when these international human rights treaties are adopted, it takes a while for the international bodies to gather signatories from nations and also have these signatories. You have ratification from these countries before these international treaties can come into force. As you may notice in my previous comments, in my comments in the previous video, in recent years, human rights advocates, lawyers, scholars, lobbyists, I've gotten a lot of stick from the press. The reason this basically really took effect from the 9/11, basically 2001. Reason is that rights of people that are incarcerated, for example, the Guantanamo Bay incarceration, and obviously other people that have committed certain atrocities or terrorist acts, they all have rights. And so it seems that the press have probably disproportionately played this to the public, such that they basically overlook the very importance and the broad aspects of human rights. My encouragement to everyone is to get involved, to get to know what your rights are, to also know the rights of any country that you live in. They are international obligations. You need to know that. And so this platform is a platform of education. It's a platform of promotion of your rights and my rights. And also to bring to you the work of human rights advocates. And so, for example, if you're denied access to justice, then that is in effect is a breach of your human rights. Even in the UK, we do see a lot about, for example, the government pulling out resources such that, even in your local citizens advice bureau, you can only get access from 9 to 12 o'clock, and hardly, if you don't call them first thing in the morning, you're not going to get through. That means that if you have a problem, you will go to these places, and sometimes they are not even open, so you don't actually have that access. And so then the law and the justice system becomes something mainly for the elite and the privileged that can afford this. But the reality is that it is a right. The state has a right and a responsibility to ensure that all citizens do have equal access to justice. Certain things may be things like forced evictions, poor housing, environmental degradation, deprivation in communities. All these are matters relating to human rights, and it's the human rights lawyers and advocates that fights for individuals and communities when these rights comes under abuse by much powerful institutions, local authorities or states. And so the reality is that human rights are not at odds with the state or with any powerful institution. The work of human rights is part of the checks and balances in any democratic society. Is there as a check and balance so that when the state is actually abusing the rights of its citizens, or if you have an authoritarian ruler that is abusing its people, then human rights are there to advocate, to lobby the state to do the right thing. So it's just there as a correction mechanism, and that is the way that human rights should be viewed. And everyone has a responsibility. Every citizen have a responsibility to know what their rights are and to get involved to support human rights institutions, NGOs, civil societies, both in their being present and support, and also in any way, that the public can support to finance these human rights advocacy and civil societies. These are the people that basically champion for the rights of people. So, for example, people whose rights are being abused in, say, police custody, or people that probably are killed in prisons, and there isn't any proper account, that sort of lack of accountability. These are all works of human rights. As I also mentioned in the previous video, things like the Hillsborough disaster, where families were seeking justice and basically trying to hold people to account for wrongdoings, for public wrongs. These are all works of human rights. Grenfell Tower, these are all examples. George Floyd. And so human rights is not just defending criminals or terrorists, or as many people have been known to believe. And so, yes, everyone's support is needed. And so I'm going to carry on in this international covenant on economic, social, and cultural rights, carrying on from Article 8. Remember to like our videos, share, add your comments and contributions, get involved, know your rights, get involved, so that the generation that are coming will get to know these things at their fingertips. It is all good that we wake up rushing around, trying to make a living, but we do have a responsibility as a people and as citizens of a nation to know what are obviously the rights and obligation of that state to the citizens. It's our duty to know that. So, Article 8. The state parties to the present covenant undertake to ensure that A, the rights of everyone to form trade unions and join the trade union of his choice, subject to the rules of the organization concerned for the promotion and protection of his economic and social interests. No restriction may be placed on the exercise of this right other than those prescribed by law and which are necessary in a democratic society in the interest of national security or public order for the protection of the rights and the freedom of others. And so this is talking about trade unions. Obviously in the UK, the Thatcher era saw basically the dismantling of the trade unions and basically weakening the trade unions. But once again, trade unions are there, once again, as part of the checks and balances within any democratic society, so that each person have a right to join a trade union. And this should be an active part of any democratic state. This is very common in places like Belgium, in France, where they have very strong trade union organizations, and people actively join them so that the labor also gains a degree of power, so that labor can also demand fair wages from employers, and also so that their rights are not abused, because together, they are stronger. And so there is that need to revive, trade unions, especially in the UK. The capacity of the trade unions, people should join them, people should contribute into them and build them up so that they can form a block and a body to ensure that they are getting a fair wage and the conditions of work is right according to these laws, these international treaties. And so once again, it's not like somebody is at odds with the states, but to ensure that the states are doing what they have signed up to do. Great. So Article 8, paragraph B, says that the right of trade union to establish national federation or confederation, and the right of the latter to form or join international trade union organizations. The right of trade unions to function freely, subject to no limitation other than those prescribed by law and which are necessary in a democratic society in the interest of national security or public order, or for the protection of the rights and freedom of others. Article 8, paragraph D. The right to strike, provided that it is exercised in conformity with the law of the particular country. So obviously the right to strike. I mean, we know that, probably about a year or two ago, when the doctors, obviously right after COVID, when the nurses and the doctors felt that their wages were so low that they literally just struggled to have an adequate standard of living, and they were having a strike. I remember that the then Home Secretary, Swallow Breverman, wanted to come up with a law that basically block people from striking. And this type of laws, if they had come into force, were basically in breach of international treaties that have been signed by the United Kingdom. And obviously, for one to know that these rights are rights that are being enjoyed by all other European member nations. Obviously now the UK couldn't be classified as a European nation, but however, the UK definitely is in that league of nations that should have that right to exercise this right to strike. So the right to strike is Article 8D of the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. So Article 8, Clause 2. This article shall not prevent the imposition of lawful restriction on the exercise of these rights by a member of the armed forces or of the police or of the administration of the state. And so it tells you that the police, neither the police nor the army, should by any means be able to use their power to stop labor from striking, as long as they're striking within the limits of the law. Article 8.3 says, nothing in this article shall authorize state parties to the International Labour Organization Convention of 1948 concerning freedom of association and protection of the right to organize, to take legislative measures which will prejudice or apply the law in such a manner as will prejudice the guarantees provided for in that convention. Article 9 of the International Covenant on Social and Cultural Rights says that the state parties to the present covenant recognizes the right of everyone to social security, including social insurance. And so once again, social security is your right. Yes. And under progressive realization that you as a citizen of this nation should have social security. Article 10. The state parties to the present covenant recognizes that 1. The widest possible protection of assistance should be accorded to the family, which is the natural and fundamental group unit of society, particularly for its establishment, and while it is responsible for the care of education and of dependent children, marriage must be entered into with the free consent of the intended spouses. So once again, Article 10 basically makes that provision that the state should ensure the protection of families, because the family is the backbone of every society, and also marriages should be at free consent. And so we have maybe seen in the UK in the past issues to do with forced marriages, fake marriages. All these things are illegal under international human rights law. Article 10, Clause 2. Special protection should be accorded to mothers during a reasonable period before and after childbirth. During such period, working mothers should be accorded paid leave or leave with adequate social security benefits. And so this is very evident in the Scandinavian countries where, the system is designed such that mothers can have that pay, to be paid well, and also to be given some sort of a leeway in the time of the childbirth and after childbirth. It is evident, we have seen possibly in the UK where a mother, when they take on a job and then they are found to be pregnant at the very early stages of their employment, sometimes they could be sacked, or there is that lookout for an opportunity to get them sacked as soon as possible, and obviously to avoid paying these mothers when they are at work. And so we know from Article 10.2 that is once again a state responsibility, which they do very well in the Scandinavian and also in the European, in mainland Europe. Article 10.3 says special measures of protection and assistance should be taken on behalf of all children and young persons without any discrimination for reasons of parentage or other conditions. Children and young persons should be protected from economic and social exploitation. Their employment in work harmful to their morals or health, or dangerous to life, or likely to hamper their normal development should be punished by law. States should also set age limits below which the paid employment of child labor should be prohibited and punished by law. And so this is a law, an international treaty signed by the UK and other major nations of the world, conditioning them to see to the welfare of children and younger people, i.e. so that they are not exploited. Obviously, we know issues where there's this sort of, how should I say it, county lines where children are being used, for some sort of drug business, these are things that are seriously addressed by the police when they do find out that these things are happening. And obviously child labor, prostitution, and all this problems that goes on in the economy. These are things that I know that the police are very much on top of, so which is a good thing because the provision is made in Article 10, Article 10.3. So Article 11 says that the state parties to the present covenant recognizes the right of everyone to an adequate standard of living for himself and his family, adequate food, clothing, and housing, and to the continuing improvement of living conditions. The state parties will take appropriate steps to ensure the realization of this right, recognizing to this effect the essential importance of international cooperation based on free consent. Now, this Article 11, obviously, if we were to use the UK as an example, yes, some years back, these were really being taken care of, such that the UK was that place where, people that are working had a decent standard of living, adequate housing was there, the right to education, and all these, and good housing were all present. But we have seen that over the years, because of the government's basically pulling out public expenditure, there is that decline in this responsibility of the state. And so to a greater extent that the state, they have somehow breached Article 11 on the basis of that one is not seeing that progressive realization where the state uses its resources to its maximum, to the benefit of the citizens. We see that the situation is not progressing, it's actually worsening. And so you are seeing a lot of food banks, a lot of homelessness, and inadequate housing, housing that are in such one should say a degraded standard, substandard housing, and also even when they are okay, they are not affordable. So these are problems that the state must look into, and to ensure that they are actually complying to the details of this international treaty. The state party to the present covenant, recognizing the fundamental rights of everyone to be free from hunger, shall take individually and through international cooperation the measures, including specific programs, which are needed. 1. To improve methods of production, conservation and distribution of food by making full use of technical and science knowledge, by disseminating knowledge of the principle of nutrition, and by developing or reforming agrarian systems in such a way as to achieve the most efficient development and utilization of natural resources. And Article 10.2 paragraph B says, take into account the problem of both food importing and food exporting countries to ensure an equitable distribution of to needs. So once again, Article 11.2, A, paragraph A's and B, tells you about hunger, that every individual should be free from hunger, especially those in an advanced economy like the United Kingdom. But we see since COVID time, after obviously in this post-COVID era, the standards of living is basically at its lowest, on the basis of the cost of food is so high that indeed there are a lot of families that actually face hunger and have to depend on food banks, and all this is not progressive realization. So, and also the cost of energy, household energy, gas and electricity, so whereby people are going out there to work to earn an income, their standard of living has been diminishing rapidly because their disposable income are being basically taken away by these high energy bills, unregulated, high food cost, high fuel cost, high transportation cost. You could almost name it, every corner. You go to the airports, you know, they are charging you so much money just to park your car there for an hour. It's a whole list of things. Every corner, you know, your life is basically being taken away. And so all these cannot be deemed to be progressive realization. And in reality, it's a breach of Article 11 of the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. The state should be regulating the travel, basically the rail system. They are pricing. This is a monopoly, and therefore, or a cartel, and therefore they should be regulated as in how much prices the, cost of tickets can be. Energy supplying companies, household energy, they have to be regulated. The list goes on. Airport parking, the charges, this has to be regulated. So many things needs to be regulated to bring this economy into balance, so that the standard of living of the people living in this country, in this United Kingdom, can improve. So all these are human rights issues, but as I always say, it's not at odds with the state, but it is there to basically serve as a check and balance, and to say when things are not really right, so that policymakers can get together and redesign an economic system and a social system that works for all. Once again, nobody is actually advocating that everybody should be the same, and that is not the way. However, the advocacy is to ensure that there is a baseline, a comfortable and a decent baseline for ordinary citizens of a nation. Article 12 states that the state parties to the present covenant recognize the right of everyone to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health. The steps to be taken, Article 12.2 says, the steps to be taken by the state parties to the present covenant to achieve the full realization of this right shall include those necessary for A, the provision for the reduction of stillbirth rate and of infant mortality for the healthy development of the child, the improvement of all aspects of environmental and industrial hygiene, the prevention, treatment, and control of endemic, occupational, and other diseases, the creation of conditions which will assure all medical services and medical attention to the event of sickness, or in the event of sickness, sorry. And so, once again, we can witness the issues within the NHS, the underfunding of the NHS, or sometimes it's probably not the underfunding, it's just probably a lot of mismanagement and waste within the NHS service or the NHS system that is basically stopping it from delivering at its full capacity and in accordance with these international treaties. So this is all cuts in, and even when the money is there, is the way that is managed, because it should be very patient centric, that is focused on delivering rather than delivering to the patient, rather than some sort of spending huge sums of money in management and having all these huge computing systems that half of the time we know that in the past have not worked. So all these needs to be looked at. So we will finish here. Just do Article 13. Article 13 says that state parties to the present covenant recognizes the right of everyone to education. They agree that education shall be directed to the full development of the human personality and the sense of its dignity, and shall strengthen the respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. They further agree that education shall enable all persons to participate effectively in a free society, promote understanding, tolerance, and friendship amongst all nations and all racial, ethnic, or religious groups, and further the activities of the United Nations for the maintenance of peace. Now, some credits can be given to the United Kingdom on this one, where there is that obviously freedom of there's that education, there's that integration of various religious groups, and the only problem that there is that right to education really is just rhetoric, but in practice, it's the cost of tertiary education, i.e. university level education, is such a ridiculous amount that you almost have to think about it a lot if you really want to take on further education, because we know that people are picking up bills in excess of 60, 70,000 when they've completed a degree in the United Kingdom. Anyway, we're going to stop here in Article 13.1 and we'll continue. Remember to like our videos, share, add your comments and contribution. It's an education platform, for you to learn about your rights. And so get involved, and also remember to share this video. So until next time, thank you for watching ICESCR Tours.